When the third son was just a boy, his father, Buxo, made him a bow. And one night, he heard a shriek from the forest, and so he went out to explore. There was a fox with squeaking feathers in its jaws. And so the boy raised his bow, strung an arrow, and shot. The fox released his prey and scurried into the darkness, and the ball of fluffy feathers squeaked with delight. And above him, there was a shriek in the branches. It was a tawny owl who opened her beak and said clearly as I speak, "You saved my little owlet tonight. You've earned my favor. You've earned my feather. I will come to your need whenever you light this feather on fire." And with that she shook her plumage, and a feather fell to the ground. And from that day forth, that boy's name was Tawny Owl, Cárabo, Cárabo. When Cárabo was older, his father died, and his other brother disappeared with the treasure, and he knew it was his time as well to seek a life. So he packed his bag, put the feather in his hat, his bow around his chest, and off he went. Off he went into the great mystery. One day, many months later, he was winding and wandering his way around below the cliffs, and he saw vultures circling above, and then he saw why. There was a corpse of a man with an empty wine bottle by his side. He must have fallen, the boy thought, and he deserves a burial. And so Cárabo lifted the man onto his shoulders to bring him to the next town, wherever that might be. But these vultures, they were not just any vultures. They were the lost souls of those who never followed their heart's calling. And they circled closer and closer. And then they attacked Cárabo and his new friend. Cárabo dropped the corpse, lifted his bow, and shot them down, one by one. But there were too many of them. So he dragged the body into a cave, and then remembered the tawny owl. He pulled the feather from his hat. He pulled the last match from his bag, and he lit it aflame. And he prayed. And as all pure prayers made from a pure heart are granted, so is this one. He heard a familiar shriek, and then another and another. And soon there were a whole parliament of owls, cooing and ruffling their honorable feathers, ready to help our young hero. They lifted the corpse into the air, and Cárabo walked behind, shooting vultures down as needed, until they reached the village. The birds dropped the corpse off outside the church, and the bewildered villagers circled around. Cárabo asked, "Do you know this man?" And a woman came up and said, "He was a village idiot." And a young man came up and said, "He was a scoundrel." And a farmer came up and simply spat. And Cárabo said, "But he deserves a burial." "And who's going to pay for it?" There was another voice. It was the voice of the priest. Cárabo reached into his bag and pulled out his last remaining coin, passed it to the priest. And as the man of the cloth fondled the metal, he asked sarcastically, "How are you with a shovel?" And so Cárabo dug through that dark, hard, wet clay all day and all night. And in the morning, the priest returned, crossed his chest, and said a few words, but nobody came to the funeral. On the way out of town, Cárabo felt a tingling sensation on his skin, through his hair, down his spine. He looked around, and he looked behind, and he saw the ghost of the dead man following him. "You showed me more kindness and more respect than I ever received in my whole life," the ghost said. And Cárabo's heart warmed at those words. He felt recognized. And they walked together. They walked and they walked through valleys, along rivers, over mountains. The ghost talked and talked and talked, and Cárabo listened and learned about that liminal space between living and dying.